Man, and we are live, guys.
Terrific.
Man, this is an exciting time. We finally made it. Sorry for those who might have been waiting right at 10 o'clock for
I
us.
know all our people are waiting for us, Jeffrey.
we are super excited once again to just be able to come and share our story and what Partnership Against Domestic Violence is doing in the community. Today, we are actually going to talk about the importance of our shelter services and the importance of our supportive housing program. So there's no better person than to have join us today. We have Miss Michelle Obama, and we have our CEO, Nancy Freehoff. But in all seriousness, we have Ms. Katha Blackwell, who's our Vice President of Shelter and Supportive Housing. This is the first Facebook Live we've ever done where I've gotten that right on the very first try. And then, obviously, again, we have Ms. Nancy Freehoff, who is, as of all this COVID stuff, is now world famous. In addition to being our CEO, she's done news interviews all over the place. And we're just happy to be here. We're happy to have this conversation. And so I don't want to waste any time. I just want to jump right in here and ask Miss Katha, there's so much negativity going on in the world today. I just thought it was important that people hear from you and understand the fact that we are still doing amazing work and we're still saving lives. And there are people who need to know that, yes, you're sheltered in place with your abuser, but you don't have to be. And so, Katha, could you just take a second and just share with the group just a success story that you've heard from your staff?
Absolutely. So we had a phone call come through our crisis line where a client was seeking shelter due to her husband beating her up in front of her children, and her neighbors literally had to pull him off of her. And so her neighbors just so happened to be connected to a local church that knew about Partnership Against Domestic Violence. So they connected her to them, and next thing you know, she was able to connect with us, and she called our hotline seeking services. We were able to put her into a local hotel and provide her with food and different clothing and different things of that sort. And in the midst of all of that, during that time, she didn't have a good relationship with some of her family members. She had been so disconnected. The abuser had isolated her in such a way that she had completely disconnected from them. But working with us, we were able to reconnect her back with her family, her cousins, her mom. And now she's been able to relocate to be with them during this time. So that was a huge success story. It was a lot of tears on that crisis call line, but we were able to walk her through that process. We provided her with hotel stay for probably about 2 weeks, but we were able to connect her back with her family. So she's in a safe place right now. She's safe.
Kat, that's such an amazing story. You know my heart, and I yearn for those stories because it helps keep me rooted and connected to why we are where we are and the reason why we do things. Nancy, is that one of the reasons why when COVID-19 started initially, is that why you pushed so hard just to make sure that all of these basic services were still available for people?
We know that domestic violence is worse when people are in crisis. When you think about the domestic violence, the perpetrators are about having power and control over their victim. And in a time of crisis like this, we're all feeling out of control and feeling powerless about what's going on around us. So it makes sense that perpetrators would escalate their violence when they're feeling that more intensely. And in addition, if you're at home with your perpetrator, your kids are at home, they're under stress, they're acting out more. Maybe one partner has lost their job, you're worried about finances. There's so many different factors pressing down on families these days that we know there's many reasons that the violence is getting worse. And Jeffrey, you said that I pushed. I really want to do a huge shout out to our staff. They pushed. They said, we will be here. We will continue to do what we need to do so that people that are enduring domestic violence right now will still have services available. So we've got people that are still going into the shelter every day and making sure that those people are housed and are fed, and that we have activities for our children. And we've got volunteers doing virtual fun events for the kids. And we've got community outreach folks going out in the community and taking food to survivors of domestic violence. So my job is to do everything I can to support the incredible staff that is still every day making sure our services are available.
Man, this conversation gets me fired up. And like literally I was not fired up like 3 minutes ago, but like I'm so pumped. The staff, you're right, Nancy, has been amazing, and just the resilience that they've shown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like and I look at that moment, you know, when we see in all these movies where they say, you know, like, hey, if you don't want to go into battle, take a step forward or whatever it is. And or if you will go into battle with me, you know, take a step forward. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. And then in my mind, I have this vision of our entire staff stepping forward and saying, you know what, this is what's right. This is what we need to do. And so we're going to be on the front line, and we're going to take some safety precautions, yes, but we need to be on the front line because our survivors demand it of us. So I'm all in. I'm fired up. Like, put me in front of some people so we can raise some money right now.
That's right.
So, all right. So Nancy, I want you to, this is I hate to go here because we had such a light and amazing story with Katha talking about the great success that we have had with our survivors. I want you to take a second and just tell the community what a world without a domestic violence shelter looks like.
I think it looks really scary. I think it looks like there's not hope. I think it looks like there's not a way to escape.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll get emotional, but I think it looks like we're saying that it's okay. And that we don't care enough to make sure that the resources are there. And everyone should have a home that's safe and that's peaceful and that's loving and that's caring. And we know so many people have a home where there's trauma and there's fear and there's a sense of darkness and hopelessness. And so, you know, people say, how do you do this? It's such hard work. And it is hard work, and it is hard to hear the stories, but you know what? We get to be the light. Mm-hmm. By having shelters, we get to be the light, and we get to be the hope, and we get to be the path to joy and to kids laughing again. Yeah. And to moms. I heard a mom say once, coming into the shelter, I finally had time to hug my children again. Yeah. And that's what we get to be.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing. You know, like I always go back to that story that Charmaine, one of our former board members, told her. She's just like, my first night in shelter she's like, that's the best, you know, like it was, she said, my 3 kids and I shared a twin bed, even though they didn't have to. But she said that was the best night of sleep that they had gotten in years. And so, yeah, like, I mean, I don't like the idea of a world with no shelter. So I'm appreciative that in 1977 somebody said, hey, let's make this happen. Yeah. So Catholic, can you describe, we're going to talk about our supportive housing program as well, but because Nancy obviously opened the door to what a world without a shelter would look like, I'd love for you just to describe tell us why a shelter is so important. Like, what's happening when a woman or a man, for that matter, when they check into a shelter, what's happening that makes that time that they're with us so important?
Well, Jeff, I can just walk you through the process of what happens when they come to us after they've called our crisis line and they get connected to how to get to our shelter. One of our staff members actually greets them when they pull up, and just the look on their face of finding a safe place to go because they know their abuser has been following them or finding them at their family members' homes. They now have a safe place where they can sleep at night and they don't have to look over their shoulder or be worried that that their abuser may find them. So the time that they have with us is a time of rest and restoration. I describe the shelters as a hospital. We're like a hospital for people who have been broken. And the time that they have with us during those 3 months or more, they have an opportunity to heal from all the negativity that they've heard. They have time to heal broken bones and wounds that they have endured by the hand of their abuser. And our shelter is almost like a hospital. Being able to watch them leave and see them come in one way and leave out another is priceless. And I would describe our shelters as a hospital. That's how I describe it. Yeah.
And I want to add to that the shelters are also a place of amazing resources. So our advocates know so much about what's available in the community, for job training, for job placement, for services for their children, for education, for other resources, for financial assistance or clothing. But anyway, it's a place to really, because abusers isolate their victims and they make them believe that nobody cares about them and nobody will help them. And if they didn't have the abuser, they would have nothing. So when they come to the shelter, they begin to see, oh my gosh, there's all kinds of resources and there are all kinds of people that care about me. Unfortunately, because of COVID right now, we can't have volunteers in the shelter, but we normally have lots of volunteers that are coming in cooking meals and doing activities with the children and teaching financial literacy and providing one-on-one assistance to our residents. And so again, our survivors say, oh my gosh, look at all these people that are coming to volunteer to help me when I was told I was worthless and no good. So I think Kath is exactly right. It's a place of healing. It's a place of finding out about tremendous resources. It's a place where survivors hear and understand that I really am important and I really am cared about and I really am worthwhile. And again, there's hope and I can move forward in a really positive way.
Thank you, both of you guys. One of the things that I get hit with a lot on all of our social channels, whether it's email or somebody asking, what services we provide, is can I bring my kids, or for some reason everybody feels the need to preface how many kids they have, like, hey, I'm a victim of domestic violence, can I come to shelter? Oh, and by the way, I have 4 kids, right? And so I feel like in people's mind, they are using the fact that they have X amount of kids as a barrier to, or they think that will be a barrier for them entering shelter. Is it, it's plain and simple, is that something that we look at as an organization and say, we can only take kids that are X age, or you have too many, or your son or daughter is 19 years old? Dispel that myth for me, Katha.
Yeah, let's dispel that.
Thank
you. We accept families as they are. We've had families who have come in with 8 children, and we've also had families come in who have college students who are above, they're 18 and up. And so we try to minimize all barriers when it comes to people staying with their families, because we all know that most moms are not going to leave their children behind. And so we want to move all of those barriers out of the way. That is not a hindrance. We don't have an age limit when it comes to male children being in the shelter. We don't limit it, because we know how important having your children in a safe place is critical with someone wanting to leave an abusive relationship. So that we can dispel all of those.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No, so what you're saying is I should never receive on any direct message, on any email, to our info box, there should never be another message that a woman or a man prefacing how many children they have. You just want them to call the crisis line and get to safety, period, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's people have in their mind what a shelter looks like. And I can tell you our shelters don't look like your typical shelter. We don't have this big room with a bunch of people just crammed in there. No, most of our families, especially now, have their own room. And so if people are in the mindset of, I may have too many children, how will this work? What would this look like? I promise you, we've had several families that have a variety pack of children with them, and we welcome them in. Yes, absolutely.
I saw somebody there it was like a mom, it was grandma, and like 3 kids. Like,
yes.
And what I've always shared with people, and I promise we're going to get to our supportive housing program as well, is whatever mom needs in that moment to feel like to get to safety. And so if mom needs a ride, let's pick a place and let's meet. If mom needs to bring grandma, come on. If mom is single and just needs a couple nights to get away while she figures it out, come.
We're here.
All right, thank you. So I promised we're going to talk about supportive housing. Is it fairly accurate for me to call that program, because I do it a lot and you guys can correct me live on Facebook, is that one of our fastest growing programs that we have? From my perspective, hearing you guys give the numbers every week, it's like, gosh, didn't we just have like 30 people in the program? Like the next week it's 60. So just take a second, Katha, talk to me about what is our supportive housing program and why is that so important?
Well, our supportive housing program consists of rapid rehousing project, a transitional housing program, a chronically homeless program. I think we have 2 rapid housing programs. So yeah, it's an array of programs, and we provide rental assistance throughout the duration of clients' leases. Normally, they're with us at least for a year, up to 2 years, depending on the project. And during that time, each family is assigned to a supportive housing advocate. The supportive housing advocate has home visits with them, goes over budgeting skills, financial literacy, helps them realize that, hey, you can do this on your own, connects them with jobs and employment and an array of different things depending on what the needs are of the family. And so one thing that we have realized is that when it comes to our shelters, we serve around 500 people a year. We need somewhere for them to go, which is the reason why we had such a rapid increase of adding more supportive housing units to our projects. Because I'm like, hey, if we have all these people coming in, we need to send them somewhere. They need to be connected to us for a longer period of time. And I tell you, it's such an amazing experience to be able to be in the lives of these clients for a year and to see them grow, to see them gain better friendships, to see them, some of them get married eventually, into a healthy relationship. So I tell you, it's priceless being a part of that supportive housing project. Yeah.
Katha and Nancy, Katha just brought up, and I've heard you guys reference this a lot in our supportive housing program, the fact that we do a lot of financial literacy in our supportive housing program. Why is that financial literacy piece so important?
For many of our survivors that we serve, financial abuse was a part of the abuse that they endured, and that can take a number of different forms. It can mean having no information about the financial resources of the family, no ability to participate in financial decision making. Some abusers will run up the credit of their victim or will move several times and break leases so that they have a terrible credit report and they have a terrible rental history, so that the ability to get credit, to be able to get a lease in their name has been very damaged by the financial abuse that they've endured. So that financial literacy is critically important, both so that that survivor can get the skills that they need to manage their financials in a positive way going forward, and to help them mend that credit history and that rental history that may have been destroyed by their abuser, so that the doors, for those of us that have always worked and managed to pay our bills, those doors are always open to us. For some of the survivors that we serve, those doors are immediately closed to them. And so through that financial literacy, we help those doors open for them again.
Thank you. That is exactly what I was looking for, actually. Nancy, so today is Giving Tuesday, and it's kind of this global day of giving. Normally it's in November, December. This year, because of COVID-19, so many nonprofits like ours are doing things that we never thought we would be doing. Like, one of the things that I love the fact that we're doing is we're putting families in hotels, and whatever. So, and again, you talk about our staff, you talk about our leadership, and just doing whatever it takes to support a survivor in this time, right? So, but all that obviously comes at a cost. And so that's what Giving Tuesday is about right now, or Giving Tuesday Now, hashtag Giving Tuesday Now. Why is it so important that the community support PADV in this moment?
The reality is our work wouldn't exist without community support. I always say there's the sexy things about our work. There's that, that counseling with that survivor that allows her to move into independent housing. But guess what? We have to get the garbage picked up every week, and we have to pay the utility bills. And there's all those, we have to have insurance, and there's all those kind of boring day-to-day costs that we all have. But if you don't meet them, you don't operate.
Right.
So that community support allows us to ensure that both that foundation of our work exists, those kind of more boring costs, as well as the real life-affirming, life-changing, life-saving work happens. And we know that people have been so severely impacted and people have lost their jobs. And so it may mean for people that were able to give to us before, they may not be able to give to us for several months. And we understand that. And we have great care and compassion for our supporters, because they've been supporting us for 43 years now, and we care about what's happening in their life. So for everyone who is still financially able to support us, that's huge, and that means that our work, and as we know, it's important now, and we know that as the restrictions loosen and as people are able to get out of the house and get to the telephone and get in contact with us, we're going to start getting those calls about, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened in my house while we were under shelter in place. I know I can't do this anymore. And so we've got to continue to have those resources to provide those services.
You know, what shook me, and Kath, I think I don't remember who said it. I think I just sit sometimes and listen to like y'all talk about what you're seeing, and I'm in awe, and then I regurgitate it back in situations like this. But it might have been you or Sam talked about, not only are we seeing an increase in the violence, but we're also seeing an increase in the severity of the violence. And so, and that to me, I don't understand that. I can't conceptualize that, because I've walked into shelters and seeing a woman and men walk in with bruises, right? Like, and so when you tell me, hey, the severity is increased, I'm like, how? Like, you know, and it makes it like I think one day on one of our calls you got like flat out angry, and I sit here and I think about it, and I mean it makes me flat out angry to know that the severity is intensifying. So I'm sorry, there was probably a question in there somewhere, but
no, but I mean you hit a good point. It's so in the midst of COVID already, in the midst of COVID-19. Now we have violence on top of that. Like, this in itself is traumatic. But then on top of that, you have victims who are trying to, live a peaceful life, trying to keep their children safe from COVID, or trying to make sure that they don't get sick. And then you have this person who's supposed to be supporting you, who's supposed to be loving you, beating on you, and to the most severest way, in the midst of everything else that's going on. And I remember that conversation that we had at the beginning. It was just so, I had answered that call that day from a caller who had called our crisis line. And I was like, seriously, of all times right now, can the abusers just sit down?
Just do right.
For right now,
just
can you
do
sit
right.
down? Yeah, absolutely. So it's very infuriating, but that's why we do this work. That's why we're here. We are here to make sure that we are open, that our doors are open. We're not closing. We're open, we're available, we're here. Yeah. Yeah.
Nancy, you asked me the other day, I think you've asked me every day, like, when do you sleep? Being at home with kids, you figure it out, you work late or whatever. But I mean, this is honestly this is what drives me. I mean, it's like, 1 o'clock in the morning and you're still up working for Giving Tuesday, because it's like, I want people to know, yes, I want to raise a lot of money, no questions asked. But more importantly for me, I want survivors to know that we're still open. Like Katha said, we're not closing. And I need every survivor to know. And if you're in the comment section and you want to share this video, or if you want to ask a question, feel free to ask a question if you're watching right now. But I really need people to know that we're still open. And so whatever I have to push as far as content on all of our social channels, I need people to know that we're still open and that we're not closing. And yes, Skip. So I always close. I have 2 more questions. And again, if you're watching right now and you have questions you want us to answer, please drop them in right now. But I always ask you guys a variation of this same question, and I'll ask it of you both right now. Katha, what's one message that you have to a survivor and they're thinking right now that they're better off at home with their abuser than with PADV? What do you have to say to that survivor?
So that survivor, I want to say, call us anyway, even if it's just to talk, even if you would like to just speak with one of our counselors, just to process everything that's taking place within your home. We're not telling you to leave, but we're welcoming you to connect with us. We have support groups in the community. We have therapists that are doing telemedicine right now over the phone. We're here for you. Call us if you need us.
That's an impactful message, and both of you guys are moms, and I appreciate that, because you guys make the world go round. You make our lives as husbands a heck of a lot easier. But Nancy, I'll ask this question of you, similar question, different variation. So what do you tell a mom, again, that's saying, if I just stick it out, my abuser will act differently, or he'll be better. If I just don't make him angry, then things will get better. What do you have to say to that woman or that mom?
You have absolutely no control over that other person's behavior. You've been told that you have control. You've been told that it's your fault. It is not your fault. You do not make it happen. The only person that has control over their behavior is yourself. And if you're a mom, you've seen that in your kids. You can tell your kids, do this, do that, but your kids are going to do what they're going to do. You can, and they're children, so you can help lead them and guide them. But that abuser is an adult. And that abuser is making the decision to act that way. And you cannot make that abuser make a decision to act differently. No, I hate to say it, but your child living in that environment is traumatizing your child. Children that grow up in a home of domestic violence are more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors, teenagers to become addicted to alcohol and drugs. They're, as younger children, more likely to be developmentally behind. They're more likely to have problems academically and in school. They're more likely to have high levels of conflict with friends. It is traumatizing your child. When you're ready, because it has to be when you're ready, but when you're ready, know that there is hope. It does not have to be this way. It absolutely can be better. There are resources, 404-873-1766. Again, as Kathy said, we're not going to tell you what to do, but we're going to be a voice of hope and a voice of thinking about and looking at what's a different direction that I can go that makes more sense for myself and my children.
That's awesome. Hey, I appreciate you guys. And I do want to just ensure that as we move throughout this day, or if you're watching this later, if there are any questions that you guys have, we do encourage you to visit our website. It's there, padv.org. Giving Tuesday is right there, but more importantly, there's stuff there for everybody, whether you're a survivor or you want to figure out how you want to support the organization. I just encourage you to go there at padv.org. Super simple. All of our social media channels are at PADV Atlanta. And so if you want to connect with us that way, we encourage you to. But again, I just want to take a second and thank Nancy and Katha for coming on today. We're going to be going live again at 2 p.m. and we're going to welcome into the conversation Miss Samantha Macedo, and she's going to talk to us about just about what PADV is doing in the community, because obviously we had Kath and Nancy here to talk about kind of internally what we're doing during this time and what we're doing in all the time, really, with what our shelters and supportive housing are doing. I wanted to also make sure we have time to talk to Samantha Macedo, who is in charge of all of our outreach. And so that's important. That's the only way we end this thing. Our mission is to end the crime of intimate partner violence and empower survivors. And I think Kath and her team do an amazing job of empowering survivors. And I think a lot of what Sam does allows us to end the crime of intimate partner violence, and that's through education. So I want to thank everybody. I said a mouthful. I want to thank everybody for watching right now. I do want to say in the comment section, I did leave the link for you to go and donate to our Georgia Gives Day. It is, again, Georgia Gives Day. Enjoying the Global Day of Giving. It's super important, and we need you in this fight. So thank you, Katha. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody who watched. We love you. We appreciate you all. Y'all have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.